In our last video in this Adobe Bootcamp series, we took a look at the work of David Hockney, who's a really amazing photographer, and we studied how he creates these collages using parts of a photograph. So we experimented with selection tools and blending options to create our own unique collage. So in this video, we're going to be learning about selective coloring. And our artist that we're going to be gaining inspiration from today is Michael Hill. Now he's a really talented photographer that does a lot of work with selective coloring, which is basically when we isolate part of an image and we keep it full color and we make the rest of our image desaturated or grayscale or monochromatic. But yeah, we're really focusing on select parts of our image and drawing attention to them with that coloring. So we'll talk about how to create pieces similar to this together. So what I'm going to do, in our last video I didn't really use this picture, so we'll go ahead and work with this picture. I'm just going to delete all the other layers because we don't really need those for now. So what I want to do here is I want to really isolate the flowers and maybe the bee. And while I'm at it, I'm going to show you guys how we can alter the colors of these flowers to create some pretty unique scenes. So first up, of course, we're going to go ahead and duplicate that layer. And then from there, what I want to do is select the subject. Now, Photoshop makes this so easy for us now. All we have to do is click on Select Subject. Now, if I want to do it a different way, I could use the Magic Wand tool, I could use the Quick Selection tool, Object Selection tool. We've got a lot of options there. But Select Subject does a pretty good job. So with that selected, I'm going to go ahead and put on a mask. So just like we had discussed previously, a mask allows us to hide and reveal parts of an image. So black hides, white reveals. So you can kind of see that in the thumbnail, how it's all black, so it's all hidden, and then the white is our area that is selected. Now, it's not perfect though. It's not perfect. So I want to kind of clean up parts of our selection here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the background layer so I can better focus on our main layer here. And then I'm going to switch to our brush and I'm going to go ahead and just start to paint in some black here. And this is going to allow me to better isolate our bee. I'm using a soft brush here because I want it to look kind of natural. And again, luckily because this is non-destructive, if I mess up, I can always just go right back in and paint over that with our other color, with our white. All right, so this looks pretty good. It's not perfect, but for demonstration purposes, I definitely think it's going to be effective. So here we have like a little gap, so I'm going to go ahead and just fill that. All right, this will definitely work. So now that we have this isolated, we're definitely going to come back to it. But before we do that, I want to go ahead and duplicate that background again, because something we saw in our artist inspiration was that it was very kind of like dark and gritty in the background and desaturated. So I'm going to go up to layer, new adjustment layer, and let's go over to our hue saturation. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and desaturate the background. And then I'm also going to make it darker because I want this bee to stand out. And again, I kind of like that like gritty style that he had, how it was super dark and high contrast. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of emulate that here. Cool. Now, one other thing he did is he added kind of like a little vignette around the corners. So we could do that with kind of a soft brush. I'm going to hit D to go to my default brushes. I'm just going to kind of paint black. Now, my opacity on my brush is at 19. Which is pretty low, so it's not coming out at 100% black. Just a nice little subtle black. And again, that helps to kind of pull our viewer's eye to this focal point here. That's looking really good. Now I need to clean up my bee. Like we can see these edges are looking a little artificial. So what we're gonna do is, I'm gonna knock this back up to 100. And we're just gonna kind of gently go around the edges. That's too extreme. All right, we'll just kind of touch it up a little bit so it better blends. Now there's other ways to do this as well. Like you could reselect it and then offset it. But I'm just gonna try to do this pretty quickly. That's too extreme. switching back to my white. All right, there we go. That's looking a little better. I'm mainly trying to target all those areas where it is very, very like yellow and almost looks like it has like a glow to it. Like up here, it's a pretty distinct orange glow. All right, cool. This is looking good. Now, something else that we can do is right now so far we've only been working with black and white. But if we paint with a lower opacity, it's essentially going to be like painting gray. So if I switch my brush, right, and then I go with black with the lower opacity, I'm at about 46% here, and I start to paint that, it's going to be like, again, kind of painting gray. So it's semi showing that background through. I definitely want to do that for the bee's wings here, so they really look more transparent with that black background. And here, I'm gonna do that so it kind of has like a more of a gradient to it. All right, that's looking pretty cool. Now, I'm spending a lot of time here, but what I really want to focus on is the actual flowers themselves. All right, so with that in mind, what I want to do is I want to alter the hue and the saturation to change these flowers' color. Now I'm going to create a copy, but first I'm going to name this so I don't get confused with all my layers. I have a bad habit of not naming my layers, but please learn from my mistakes and name your layers. It will definitely help you in the future as you start to work with like files that sometimes have like 50 layers. All right, so I'll call that bee selection. I'm gonna make a copy of it. Cool. So I'll show you why in a bit of why I'm creating that copy. So again, we're going to go to layer, new adjustment layer, hue saturation, and this is going to give me some fun effects. So look at this, right? These are really cool effects. And something I can do because I made a copy of this is I can clip it. I thought blue's kind of pretty. I can clip it and then I can actually put a mask over top of my hue and saturation. So that can help me if I want to keep my bee kind of a more normal color. And maybe I also want to make this flower that it's on red. So now it's on like a red flower that's kind of set apart against those blue flowers. Maybe if I do like if I lower my opacity, I can make like a purple flower that might blend kind of nicely. Like, look at that, that's pretty. So you can do some really fun stuff with it. I'm gonna make this one a little redder too. Yeah, so some super cool stuff. And maybe I want to do some hue saturation over top of the entire image. So if I go to layer, adjustment layer, hue saturation, and we can manipulate our whole scene here. Get some trippy effects. Pretty cool, pretty cool. All right, so I'm probably overdoing it a little bit with some of these extra items. I'll go ahead and delete those, but I wanted to show you just the possibilities there. Now, let's go ahead and crop this guy. I like him in the corner there. That's looking nice. And then yeah, maybe we do a final adjustment layer with our overall hue. And this is going to be kind of like your personal preference, really, whatever you want it to look like. I think a little more of this to be showing. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to paint white, because to me it's just looking a little too, it's going to be kind of personal preference, but to me it's looking a little too gray. So yeah, with some fun selective coloring there, I'm bringing back just a little bit more, maybe to the branches. I want this bee kind of offset. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. So a huge difference from when we originally started. This was like our first bee image, and then this is a pretty cool, interesting, slightly more gritty style. And what I can do is, again, I can create that new flattened layer on top, and I can add some other filters to it. So we can always talk about filters more later, but I'm gonna go up to Filter, Sharpen, and I'm gonna go to my Unsharp Mask. And with this selected, I can kind of create a little more, a little more sharpness to it. So it's going to give the illusion that it has more clarity. So I'm working with my sliders here, making that pretty high because I really want that B to be in focus. And look at that, it accentuates like every little hair on it, the texture. This is a super cool photograph. Yeah, so look at that difference. All right, guys, so that was our quick video where I just took a bee photo that I took at Lou Gardens and used some selective coloring to make it into a more interesting art piece. And of course, we did take inspiration from an amazing photographer who really specializes in selective coloring. So with that, go ahead and go out and create your own art piece inspired by Mark Hill. So really think about that selective coloring technique. Think about what it is that you want the focus to be on and have fun with it. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.